the story, Murder, Medics, and Maid-Hem edition. I'm here with my fellow hosts, Dezzles and Zoe.
Good morning.
What lovely.
Hello.
Morning for one of us.
It's not my fault the two of you live in ridiculous time zones.
Yes, we live in the ridiculous
Yes,
time
ours
zone.
is the weird one.
But pray tell, it's March, but what season is it for you?
Autumn, a very sensibly named season.
I am covered in cat bite marks. Anyway, today we will be very easily distracted. Easily distracted. Easily amused.
What?
Because it's 7 a.m. for poor Dezzles. It's rum o'clock for Zoe, and I'm running on 4 hours of sleep. So this will go so well as we talk about are we on book 5?
Oh, I have
think
this written
so.
down somewhere.
My brain is such mush. I think it's
Hmm.
episode 4, book 5. No, episode 3, book 5.
I think that sounds right because it's
Episode
yeah, it's
4,
book 5.
book 5.
Yeah.
Wait.
Nope.
Episode 4, book 5. Wait.
Flying too high. Okay.
There's
Cocaine
two.
Blues, Flying Too High, Ballarat,
Doc, Victoria Doc.
Victoria Dock. We are on 5. We are on 5.
Yes, we are number 5.
Book 5, episode 3. Weirdly enough.
Mm-hmm.
All right, which is the Greenville murder. That took way too long to get out. Oh, this is live. Oh, well, okay. So, bear with me here. All right, what were our first impressions of the Greenville murder?
It starts a lot faster than almost any of the others. Like in the
Agreed.
first page, we've got a murder, we've got a dance hall, we've got a terrible date. Like
Yeah, like Carrie Greenwood is like not wasting any time. She's like, all right, this guy, boom.
Yeah, let's just get into it.
And I would.
It-
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think this one, especially in terms of the book, this was my favorite book so far. It read really easily, and it made the most logical sense in terms of timelines for me. In terms of the storylines, like I didn't really get lost in it the way that a lot of the other ones. I'm like, I don't know. There's like 3 children, and some of them have almost the same name, and one of them was lost. Some of them aren't. I think one of them murdered somebody, but I'm not sure. Like,
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. There's not super convoluted, which I liked.
and this is one of the ones where the TV show compressed so much.
Oh,
They did,
yeah.
and I think they did it very well.
Mm-hmm.
I now understand why we never see Charlie again in the show, because they changed his character very drastically.
Mm-hmm.
He is not a very likable person at all in the book. Whereas I find him fairly sympathetic in.
Yeah, he's very
He was a
different
lot more
character. So is his mother. Very.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
no, his mother is.
Oh.
I will say, this was definitely also one of my favorite books, if not my favorite so far. I will also, I'll bring that up later. I will say, I think I still like the show's adaptation of it better in some respects. Mostly because I feel like I liked Frannie's connection to the Freemans more in the series than,
Yeah.
because we got a bit of that taste of her past, where instead of being asked by Charles, who's just the worst and one of the many
Yes.
dudes who just has
Family just sucks.
no use for women apparently.
Yeah.
But instead of that, I liked how in the series she sought out Charles because she had known Vick in the war,
Mm-hmm.
and as a nurse, and like she had promised to look after him. if something happened. And I found that a very beautiful but very quick backstory. Sorry, Zoe, what?
No, that's fine. I am curious occasionally because I feel like that's a theme with the TV show, is that it establishes a lot more of her backstory and her relationship to people before the series started. And a part of me wonders if it's because, and I'm going to blank on the actress's name who plays Frannie Fisher. Essie Davis, thank you. If it is because she's slightly older, so they can establish more of a history with her prior to the beginning relationships. Whereas, I mean, we've talked before, I think Frannie's like early 20s at most.
No, because in Murder the Ballarat, we found out she's got to be in her 30s.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
I forgot about Ballarat.
Like, I don't know if she's, because I think Essie Davis was her late 30s, and fucking working it. But because we found out, what was her name? Eunice. Eunice was like 29, and she said something like, "I'm not much younger than your Miss Frannie."
Yeah, she was a couple years old.
So I was like, okay, so now we know that Frannie's in her, and I feel like it's interesting. I wonder if Carrie Greenwood changed her decision of what Frannie's age was since the first book, because I feel very much, I agree, she's very like early 20s in that first book, and then in this one, I think she even was either in this book or maybe it was the last one. She had some sort of offhand comment of like, maybe if she's younger, put up with that, and I'm like, interesting. Okay, we're getting a little bit of that no nonsense, like Frannie going like, I don't have the fucking energy for this bullshit.
And I get that.
So I wonder if it was the TV show just trying to like tie in more of her backstory in a way that like, so it gave her more of a reason rather than, oh, this flippant boy like wanted me to go dancing. You know what I mean? Like, if they're maybe just trying to ground her relationships in Melbourne more.
But it worked. Like, I really liked the way they did it. They did it wonderfully in this episode.
Yeah. It immediately, honestly, I find it very interesting in contrast because I despise Charlie in the book. But I was immediately endeared to him when, in that first few minutes in the series, where they're talking back and they're like having a little bit of banter, and he's talking about the plane, trying to sell her the plane, and she's like, "What's on with it? And what's wrong with it?" And he's like, the way he says, you know, Vick was going to teach me how to fly it, but he never came back from the war. And then there's this brief, like, very tense moment, and he's just like, besides, I get giddy standing on a chair, so.
Yeah, there's a lot more depth to Charlie in the show. A lot more depth. The actor had so little to work with dialogue-wise, but did such a beautiful job with those layers and making. I was a little sad that Charlie, like, it makes sense now why we don't get him in later in the series because of what happens to him in this book, which we'll talk about. But it was very kind of sad of like, oh, I would have liked to see more of him. But him in the series, not. Yeah.
Cool. Because let's talk about this book and the.
Quick note from the chat. Christian said, Frannie ran away from boarding school to go to France and serve in the war. I always figured she was born in 1900, so that would actually kind of line up with the slightly older age range that we're looking at.
Oh, Book Charlie. All right.
So we start Charlie.
Out at the Green Mill, which was an actual place, apparently, during the time.
I wanted to go there, but apparently it's gone.
So, funny thing is, in Chicago, there is a jazz dance hall called the Green Mill. That's really close to where I live. They only take cash. And it's one of those places where you can dance, you can listen to the music, but like it's not like super loud and everything. Like the one night I was there was a big swing night, so it was super loud. But for the most part, it's like you come here to drink, you come here to dance, you come here to listen to the band.
Oh, so we should go. And then film it and be like, we're at the Green Mill! Yes. But not actually.
But, so the entire time I'm listening to it, because I listen to the audiobook, I'm like, I just can't help seeing it in the Green Mill in Chicago.
Which is fair. So we open up on a dance hall where there's, they're dancing and whatnot. She's like, Charlie, why did you ask me out here? Because you don't really seem super interested in me. So what is, she's like very upset with like her date choices of like, I don't really like this guy. I find him kind of simpering, but at least his mother will shut the fuck up. And during this, there's also, which I found strange, there's also there's a dance competition marathon going on for 48 hours. I found it very interesting. It makes sense because I get that you want to keep business going. I found it very interesting. Normal dancers were able to come in and out while that was still going on, because you would think that that would be
distracting.
Very, like, I wonder if like they kept an eye on people or whatnot. But during this, we watched what's going on, and all of a sudden, one of the marathon dancers falls down, and they're like, "Oh, he collapsed." This other, because there was only down to two couples, and they're like, "This couple is the winner." And Frannie's like, "The guy who just collapsed is dead, because I can see blood."
Did she trip over him a little?
I think she does.
She trips over him.
Yeah, and she briefly sees something that she's not sure what it is, and then when she looks at the body again later, it's gone. She's like, "Oh, something's changed, but I don't know what." I will also say one thing I loved about this is, while it was still not as much as I wanted, we got some more Jack Robinson and Frannie action.
Yes!
It's a nice cop. It's Detective Robinson.
Oh, I love him so much. Also, like, I'm going to skip briefly ahead because I feel like for the first time, even though it was completely physically impossible because it happened when they were on the phone, I feel like this is the first book where we got a now kiss moment. At least in my opinion.
I agree.
Which is when she's talking about, like, sorry, I'm skipping ahead. We'll have a lot of back and forth, but I'm really excited because we finally got a moment. Because they're talking, and she's like, "Look, I have to go to the bush to track this down from a thing, but when I come back, like, I'll let you know who the murderer is. Like, I think I figured it all out." And at some point, she makes a joke of like, "Well, maybe I'll just die in the bush," and he's like, "Don't joke about it."
Yeah.
And he does it in a way, and maybe it's just the way that I can't remember her name. The narrator read it, but it was just very like, you can see his admiration. Like, he's frustrated with this woman on occasion, but it's like, you can see that he's started to have feelings, or at least a fondness of like, I can't even like hear you joke about you crashing your plane. Like, don't. I don't like it.
Where is?
I know you're on the phone, but now kiss! I know it's literally physically impossible right now, but
I love, though, that when he first comes in, because, like, okay, the guy collapses, they establish that he's dead, they hang out for a while, because she's like, "Hey, someone's got to call the cops," and, like, they're not going to let everyone leave, so we might as well sit here and drink this hooch that everyone's carrying with them.
The hooch. Give me the hooch.
But when Jack comes in, there's a line, and I think it is that death blooms around you like daisies. Or something like that.
I ought to run you in for complicity. Corpses bloom like daisies wherever you go, don't they?
Corpses bloom like daisies. I love that line so much because I feel like that's also one of the first times where he's just like, "You're gonna be there. I don't know how you're gonna be there, but I'm gonna get called for something. There's gonna be a body, and Frannie's gonna be there."
And they're always gonna be the one of those cases when she's involved. He makes
right, and I just I also love that in the show, she actually literally secures the scene. Like, they don't have her do it in the book, and I was a little, because I was like, all right, that's a nice liberty that I think the show took, where she literally is like, "He's got all this money in his pockets," and he's like, "Did you take that off the body?" And she's like, "Come on, Jack, I secured the scene." Like.
I also, and Christian, I do like I haven't taken anything seriously since 1918.
Oh, I love that. Oh, God,
I also like
so
Frannie's response after he's doing the whole I Ought to Take You In, where she just turns around and she's like, unless you think it really was me, in which case you better put the cuffs on, governor.
Yes. It's like, no, I don't think
Frannie.
it's you.
Like they're
That's
starting to
Governor.
have a sense of humor with each other.
Yes, the nice,
They're
like,
starting to have that back and forth.
it's more than just business now. Because before it was like, oh yeah, she's a fine, you know, she'll help out. She's fine at what she does. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, we've started to see a bit more of that playfulness in the books. So I'm like, yes, please give me. Because the show is like way ahead of you books right now when it comes to moments.
Just glad that he's back and more in
I
the story
know!
now.
We barely had him last time, and I was just like,
Okay, so like a month ago, I texted randomly being like super excited, being like, has anyone else started the book? And I think I made a comment about how it had a really good start, but neither of you had started yet, and it was me being super excited that Jack had shown up in like the first chapter.
We see a lot more Jack in this book.
we
In
do,
general,
it's
we see a
so
lot more of
great.
him.
And I was
Again,
sort of
a lot more of it's on the
okay.
phone than I prefer. Again, I need them in person. No, Chris! I'm gonna find what?
Are you sure?
No. So there is, oh gosh, what is his name? Tintagel
Stone.
Tintagel Stone and the Jazz Makers.
Yes.
That's a name. Tintagel.
I googled to see if they were real. I was disappointed.
I will say that if you listen to the interview at the end of the audiobook, Carrie Greenwood has this great comment because they talk very briefly about jazz in this time period, and she talks about how they're actually, because what I think the interviewer asked was about the lead singer, who is a woman, and in the TV series is a woman of color, is an American woman of color, and is asking about basically women's involvement in this type of performance and this type of.
Oh, yes.
And in the interview, she says there were actually all of these all female jazz groups that just kind of get forgotten.
Oh.
And that in that era, there were a lot of music groups that were all female, that were jazz groups, that just kind of get forgotten. And she actually said, and I really love this phrasing, that female history, you'll lose female history if you don't hang on to it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. No, I'm so glad you brought that up because I forgot about that moment, but I remember when she said it because I listen while I commute. So, and I remember her saying that. I was just got so like, oh, that's beautiful and so true. And the fact that like, you know, no one really recorded it because it fucking cared. And it was just like something that we lost so much of. And I'm like, guys.
It's a very concise and very beautiful way of putting it.
Yeah.
That there's a lot of female history and you lose it if you don't hang on to it.
It was very beautiful.
I also, in talking about that and talking about the Jazz Makers, I think both the TV show and the book do a really good job of giving. It's Noreen in the TV series. I feel like she has a different name, but I'm forgetting it right now. It's still Noreen. They do a really good job of giving her weight.
Yeah.
Of like giving her importance in both of them.
Yes.
And in a very unapologetic way, not a like, well, she was doing this because she was forced into. It's a very like distinct and aware moves that she makes in both.
Yeah.
I also really like that Frannie has a lady crush on her.
Yeah, and it's for the first time we have met a woman who Frannie admits, this woman makes me feel plain. Like, Frannie was like, I'm the hottest shit, whatever, and it's like, nah, I feel like a little boy next to this woman. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I'm like,
and I love that part of it, and she says it, part of it is her confidence, and part of it is her voice, and it's the way that she sings.
Yeah, and it's just,
it's just her, and like it's such. I really love that exchange
I've got
of
the quote.
like,
So there's
Your
a
ability to
bunch.
find quotes is amazing, and I love it.
It's because I spotted part of it because I've got like 3 quotes from like the one little section. But just jumping to the red lips curved over white teeth as she smiled into the dark. Frannie, for the first time since she had been 14, felt small, pale, and flat-chested, devoid of charm in the face of this arrogant and voluptuous challenge. She shook herself and ordered coffee.
And arrogant is not used as an insult.
No.
Yes.
I liked that. I had to read that sentence a couple of times. Arrogant is not used as an insult. It's used to just say she has a fuck ton of confidence and she knows, and she comments on it later, that she knows the effect that she has on a room and she knows how to control it. And
So good. It was nice to see Frannie shook by something that wasn't someone pointing a gun at her.
Mm-hmm. And it was nice to see her take note of somebody who wasn't a dude. Like, but to take note in a way of like, I respect you very much and you have a very strong presence that has an effect on me. It was really nice to see that acknowledgement.
There's a kitty who's asleep on the couch behind me. Sorry. I just had a brief moment of, where's the cat? Okay.
Yeah, I spotted this while doing my stats collection.
I really didn't like Robert in the book, or in the movie, or God, TV show.
Robert's
the
Rogers.
Noreen's husband.
Ben.
Roberts.
Ben Rogers.
I was close-ish. It's fine.
I love you.
Blame the rum.
I think he had more personality in the book. I'm not entirely sure that was a good thing.
It was a personality that made it a lot clearer that he was like.
I liked his motivations better in the series, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Because we end up finding out that the man who's killed, whose name is
Lionel?
Is it Leonard? No, it's not Leonard Stevens. They changed it for the series.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember his name. Crap.
Just for my clarification, when you say series, you mean TV series?
Yes. Series book. Sorry. In the show, his name is Leonard Stevens. I don't think his name is Leonard in the book, but in the book, he shoots this man through a modified
mute
in his coronet, and he's actually aiming for Charlie and missed, which I also find fascinating. But in the series, he kills Leonard Stevens because Leonard is blackmailing a bunch of people, including Noreen. And he thinks that they were sleep blackmailing her to do it, right? As opposed to, I liked that they tied everything in with the blackmail.
Yeah.
That was kind of nice. A nice way to compress that easily of like, well, here's a guy who's been blackmailing people, who's been like literally tricking men into being in compromising positions and then blackmailing them. Why wouldn't he also blackmail other fucking... Like, it was like, okay, cool.
Like, this is just what he does.
Yeah. So I was fine with that compression. Also, because I just sort of feel like... Ben Rogers doesn't really have a good enough reason to try to kill Charlie.
Yeah.
Like, Noreen was not giving him the time of day, sir. So, why do you care?
Yeah, it was
it's this bizarre thing of like, I understood, at least in the show, he's like, I mean, he doesn't have great reasons, but he's like, I thought she was in love with him. And like, which doesn't make it great, obviously, but I'm like, I understand your motive a bit more.
Yeah.
Because you're like fueled by, she's gonna leave me for you or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah.
But... I thought you were hitting on my girlfriend, And then I found out you wanted her for a band. And I'm like, I can understand being miffed about that, but deciding to kill the man.
Also, she said no, dude. Like,
yeah, she said no. So why? What do you benefit from? Like, I don't really understand. I will kill him now. Especially considering he then, when given the chance to run away with her, leaves her there. Like, I don't understand Ben Rogers at all in the book.
Yeah,
I'm like, you are a tempestuous you're tempestuous and angry at everything, but you don't seem to actually invest. Like, you don't really care about those things. You just get mad at shit. Like, you probably would have murdered anybody. And I'm like, all right.
Because, he's a trumpeter. You know how they are.
Apparently.
Okay. I love the fact that they're just like, I mean, he's a fucking trumpeter. I'm like, what do you expect? Like, I'm just like, but I feel like that I like, having been in like a musical theater related community, like if you've ever been around singers, someone's like, oh god, it's a soprano, like it's fine, or like it's fine, the altos will show up eventually, like it's cool, like like I feel like it's just one of those things that like around a community you eventually just get the like, oh god, it's just insert weirdly specific thing here. You know how they are.
There's a joke about, I can't remember what it was, but it was something about oh god, it's a soprano, like,
how do you know there's a soprano at your door? Because they can't find their key and they don't know when to come in.
Yes. Thank you. Where it's just like,
that took me a moment.
Yeah. They don't know when to come in and they can't find their so good. But yeah, no, I did appreciate the like, well, he's a, and the fact that Frannie just eventually goes, I mean, I guess he's a trumpeter. She's like, I guess that's the excuse we're using. All right, that's here we are. But
they don't say it about anyone else. They're not like, those court, like, it's only the trumpeters that they're giving shit the entire time.
Which makes me go, okay, so were trumpeters like how like they're giving trumpeters all the flack. So I'm like, is that basically like how nowadays we give flack? Like, well, he's a drummer.
Oh, right, yeah.
Huh?
Sorry, you dropped out for just like one word.
Oh, sorry. Drummers. Because we're just like, well, he's a drummer, so.
Yeah. Or like,
not for the same reasons. It's like you're flaky or whatever, but it's like, well, he's a drummer.
Well, and I feel like in, I think it was like early college, it was a guitarist.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he's a guitarist. Like, we all know that guy.
Right. Anyway.
But I am curious about, because it's so just a throwaway thing, and they actually don't fully explain it. Like, it's just kind of, like, accepted. There's that part of me that just really likes research. It's like, but what was the social standing of a trumpeter in the jazz age? Like...
I'm resisting the...
I don't know. I'm very curious.
Like, I'm really curious about that. Like, if it was that much of a throwaway, like, what was that actual standing? Because I like research.
None of us here to like research. That's madness.
It's not a thing I get entirely distracted by sometimes, then suddenly realize I've lost 3 hours.
There's no such thing as Google rabbit holes. What?
I don't know what you're talking about. That ain't a thing.
Yeah, so, but I feel like they kind of like, they explained it enough for us to be able to, at the end of the day, go, this is just who he is. He's kind of a dick. He's going to fly off the handle, and we know that basic character outline.
We do, and until the end, we just thought that he was all bluster. Rather than, oh no! At some point, apparently Ben Rogers was going to kill a bitch.
Can I also just put out there, like, for somebody who went through the process of taking his professional musical instrument and altering it in a damaging way to make it into a weapon, he didn't have a lot of follow through on this whole murdering thing.
Right.
Because then Charles, like, disappears into, like, so immediately after, he disappears after the cops come.
Yeah.
And
he decides to hide him.
Yeah.
Because I was sure that it was going to be Ben, and then he's hiding him. I'm like, well, but he had opportunity there where no one knew where Ben was. That would have been the perfect time to, I don't know, garrote him, I guess. I don't know.
Anything?
I don't know how to
bash him in the head with a book.
I assumed, because I'd seen the show first, that basically what was going to happen is Ben did intend to kill Stevens, and then was like, oh, but now Charlie, who I don't really care for, has run out, so it makes him look super guilty, so I'm going to hide him and then help him escape, so the cops will then think that he's the one who did it.
Yeah.
I did not anticipate that he was trying to kill Charlie in the first place, because that made very little sense to me. Especially, I'm like, I feel like you're right. He has no follow through, and it just further pushes the fact that he really just wanted to hurt this guy, whether it was death or like fucking up his life, because he doesn't really care about killing him after that. He's like, yeah, let's off the freaking, like, you know, we'll ship you out and you'll be safe. And he's like, no, you'll be far away from Noreen and your life will be ruined. And I'm like, I don't, and you clearly have no remorse for, oops, just killed this dude.
I mean,
like,
I feel
no one knew he was a blackmailer other than
Noreen.
Bobby.
Oh,
Noreen didn't know.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Not in the book. She knew in the
she knew in the TV show.
In the TV show.
I feel like the story that got told very much in the book was about people who valued their professional pride over their personal relationships and over the people in their lives. And I feel like that's the core of the story that ended up getting told, at least in that group, in the book. And in the TV show, they made it much more personal.
Yes.
They made it about Noreen having been previously married at 16 in the States. And that's what she was being blackmailed about. And that's why she was sleeping with him. And that's like, she had an investment there. They made it much more personal and much more about the people. And the story that got told in the book was about people who valued the fact that she was being poached for another band over she's not actually in love with him.
Yeah. That's very astute. I didn't actually really connection. You're completely right. It's very much about personal versus professional. One thing I will say that I feel like the book did far better. I did not understand until I think in the series, the show, they should have made Charlie's mother more like she is in the book.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm fine with them changing Charlie.
I hate that woman so much.
But I didn't understand why he was blackmailing the mom in the TV show about, like, oh, your son's alive. And I'm like, I get you maybe don't want to hurt Charlie, but you don't have as much of a, to be, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand why you're actually being blackmailed.
So for those of us who are just listening, we get through the actual murder at the Green Mill. Charlie disappears and goes into hiding. So Frannie goes to his mother. So Frannie goes to his mother reluctantly. I do love the fact that every time she has to interact with this woman, she's like, I need coffee and then I need alcohol and then I can talk to her.
I know those sorts of people are.
Gives you such a picture of who this woman is.
And I love the fact that she keeps using the phrase getting cried over. Like, I just can't deal with being cried over anymore. Because it gives this wonderful idea of, like, they're not crying about you and they're not crying about anything that has to do with you. They're just, like, foisting this emotional response on you. But essentially she goes to his mother and is like, hey, this happened last night. Do you know where he is? Because I don't, and nobody else seems to. And somehow through this conversation, his mother basically ends up being, well, find my son. I'll pay you. And that's one of the things. Frannie's being paid in the books, and she's not in the TV show.
Yeah, she's got a personal investment.
She does it as a favor.
She's like, I care about Charlie because Vick. Also, in the book, she very nonchalantly goes, oh, also, maybe you should find my other son, who may actually still be alive.
Yeah, she's just like, well, I also have a son who might be alive.
Like,
Which,
love...
to Frannie's credit, she was
Again?
like, I love the internal monologue. God, Frannie's internal monologue and all of her interactions with those women are amazing. But that one is especially great because she's just like, I'm sorry. We're... Come again? And she also very wonderfully, Frannie's response is, I can. And of course, you know, the fee will come on top of the one for finding Charlie. And the mother starts to say, oh, I thought this would be a favor, or I thought you would do it pro bono. And it's like, oh no, of course. Yeah, no, I'm totally going to pay you. And like, I feel like that's one of those first moments where we get a look at who the mother is.
This woman
who is blubbering over the fact that her son has disappeared. We're going to ignore the fact that the cops think he murdered someone. She's just upset about the fact that he didn't come home last night.
He didn't come home!
Also, oh my god, the narrator's voice for the mom is great.
Oh god. It annoys me so much.
It annoys me so much.
It's so perfect.
But it's so perfect. We're going to ignore the fact that she's only upset about the fact that he didn't come home last night. It has nothing to do with murder. Also, I have another son that I told my first son that he was dead.
Why?
Because
Right?
she's
You're
a terrible human.
I think like one of the things I find super amusing, like watching the episode, is like how so much of the book is about trying to find out where Vick is and then get to him, and then it's just kind of like a cut. It just cuts to hanging out with him.
Because, you know, we don't need to fly all the way.
Did find
he
out.
also seems like he's in less of a troublesome area than he is in... Like, he's legit in the bush in the book, and I don't think he's there.
I love Vick's storyline in the book.
Yeah.
No, he's freaking great.
I did ask some questions, because I know people, they mention, what's the town that they mention he's in, that I really should know, because I know people that live there. Because he's in Talbot, but he stops by another town that starts with B called...
Oh, and there's 2 lesbians! I got big...
Yes!
Yes!
Sorry.
I'm gonna knock over my sound screen.
We're gonna skip, because when she's going to look for Vick, Talbotville is one of them, and I can't remember if that's the first or second place.
That's the second one.
It's the second.
But in there's a famous writer who also writes mysteries, apparently, who Frannie hangs out with, and then it's so beautifully done because they're basically giving her these looks because she's living with her, this doctor. And so the two are kind of looking at Frannie going like, how long is it going to take you to figure this out?
There's only one bedroom. Let's see how long you can do it.
And so Frannie just goes, and
she's asking the writer, like, why would someone who writes about people and about society, like, stay out here? And they just kind of go.
And she's like, oh! Because no one questions why 2 women are living together.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really like how Frannie's talking to the author, and she's like, I didn't work out who committed the murder in your book until this part. And the writer just turns around and goes, oh, neither did I.
That is the most true to, like, any writer you ever talk to, though. Like, I didn't figure out until this point. Oh, God, I didn't until, like, 3 chapters later, so you're better than me.
It's just so, like, it's such a beautiful moment. I just love those little... Frannie's got very beautiful, non-sexy interactions in this book that made me just very, like, my heart was warm. We have the return of Bungie and Bill, which was awesome. This is the thing I want to call attention to. I'm sorry, we're going to hop everywhere. This book had so many callbacks. Yes. We had a letter from Lindsay. Sasha's getting married, and there was a letter from
Peter.
And she's still, like, very clearly, like, holding him very near. It's like,
I love that she didn't read the letter. It doesn't, like, she picks up a letter, she gets a letter from Peter, and she looks at it and she puts it in her gown and she has a moment of like, that hurts. Like, I don't know what's in it. I know that I'm not trying to not think about this person. It hurts that it's there. I'm not going to address it. And like several chapters later, she realizes she still has the letter with her.
Yeah.
And then a couple of chapters after that, then she reads it and she has a moment of being like, it hurts. And like, he cares about me and I care about him and it's not ever going to happen. And that hurts.
Mm.
And then it moves on.
A beautiful moment of humanity that we really like regarding, like, yes, it's something that I really appreciate with the books that I don't think the show really has an opportunity to do. We kind of get it a little bit with Lynn when we get to him, sort of. Mm-hmm. But we don't really see this, like, her keeping up with people and still investing her energy in them, even though it's like, because Frannie's not like, I sleep with you and then you're disposed of. It's just like, I'm not a monogamous person, but I'm not heartless. And I'm like, you're still a human being to me. Mm. And I'm like, this is freaking great. Like, I love that.
Amazing.
And I love that she's both happy and kind of amused that Sasha's getting married. And like,
right?
She still freaking cares about Lindsay, even though she's kind of like, you're kind of a dumb kid in college. But you're cute.
Yeah. Like, but that's the other thing. She has very distinct relationships to each of these people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, she has a very emotional connection to Peter that's obviously still a pain point. Yeah. She has a very, like, cordial relationship towards Sasha.
Yeah. It's very much like, yeah, we fucked, and you tried to use me. No.
She's that person who, like, will flirt with you constantly, and you're like, that's really adorable. Go back over there. Like, this is fun.
Go find some other rich lady to marry.
And then there's Lynn, where you're just like, oh god, you're a puppy dog.
Yeah. She's like, oh.
But in terms
of
writing,
go dancing, Lindsay.
Yeah. But like in terms of writing and in terms of representation, like, she is somebody who has no desire at that point to be monogamous, but she recognizes her partners as being people, regardless of the level of connection she maintains with them.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that, to be honest. I feel like this is one of the very few representations of something that I'm not sure I would dare call it polyamory, but sort of.
I wouldn't call it polyamory so much as, I'd still stick with
friends with benefits. I don't know.
It's something more along the lines of just umbrella non-monogamy or friends with benefits. Like, it's the general consensus understanding that she is not going to be monogamous with any one of these people, and they're all aware of it.
Yeah. And
I appreciate that, one, it's not like I'm one and done. Mm-hmm. It's, no, we can continue this relationship. You just need to understand I'm not a monogamous person. Mm-hmm. And frankly, it's one of maybe the only times I can remember in a work of literature that I have seen a healthy portrayal of that.
I agree.
Actually, possibly one of the only times I've seen a healthy portrayal of it ever.
The only time I ever see that, especially, and I don't see it healthily, but the only time I ever see it, especially with a woman at the center, is I see it in terms of a woman who is looking to find herself in other people's beds.
Yeah.
And eventually, by the time you get to the end of the episode or the end of the book, she's learned some massive lesson about herself through her partner.
Yeah.
Or you have the very, like, James Bond style, everyone knows that I'm not a one-woman man.
And all of the people are very cardboardy. Like,
yeah. This is really the only representation I've seen where all of the characters have depth. All of them have that, and their relationships to the main character have that. It's really, they feel human. They don't feel like props.
You reminded me of that quote that I know we've mentioned before of Carrie Greenwood, of Frannie Fisher is like James Bond but with better lovers.
I feel like it's a quote. I think we bring it up every single thing.
Possibly.
But it's such a great quote.
It's so true. Because you're just like, yeah, she's selfish and Like, these people, not only do these people have lives outside of her, those lives continue even when they're no longer in the story. Like,
Yes.
Sasha appeared in book 1. We're on book 5, and we're hearing about him getting married.
Mm-hmm.
Good
We
for
may
him.
never hear about him again after this, but we're like, you kind of just wrapped up a storyline. Like, they were still looking for money and a way to, like, keep themselves
Yeah.
together, and apparently he's now found it.
Good for
Cool.
him.
Like, it's fantastic. Sorry,
It
we've
was
gotten
nice to
track
see
from the
those
actual
like
story.
loose
Well-
ends kind of tying up.
Yes.
Yeah. What also, it makes the entire world feel like it has a lot more depth. Like, because
Yes.
there are other storylines that are going on that don't involve Frannie. Like, it's that thing that happens when you meet someone, you have a specific relation to them for a time, and then their lives continue regardless of if you continue to talk to them, you know? And then,
Yeah.
like, you have some random interaction with them a few years later of, oh my God, how are you? What's happened with your life? And you get kind of a rundown version of it up to where they are. And it makes the whole world feel a lot more rich.
I want to know,
The world still
in general.
continues even if Frannie is not touching it.
Yes.
speaking of world continuing, I want to know.
She's the center of the
It's-
story, not the world. Sorry.
It's the it's something that wasn't in the episode but was in the book, was the couple.
Yes!
I want to know if they're going to
Yes!
pop up again, because I got
I
so
hope they do.
I got so enraptured in that little storyline.
Yeah.
I am really hoping that in the next book, depending how far down the line the next book happens, that she receives a box of white peaches.
Yes.
I want to see, like, I want her, or not a box, but like boxes, crates, because she wants to take a bath in white peaches. And I'm like, that's what I want. Just for that to show up as, like, even if it's just a throwaway, like, you know, Miss Frannie, a bunch of peaches arrived for you. And she'd go, oh. Like,
Because part of me had wondered, like, if maybe, like, at first I was like, was it maybe like that couple getting rid of some of the competition because they were like running on? But then, like, as you got to get to know these, I'm like, nah, they're
They're so
such little
sweet.
sweeties, and
And
I
they
just wanted
just,
things to be good for them, and it
So
worked out. and I was
again,
happy.
for those listening,
Oh, yeah,
again,
sorry.
for those listening, Dez is referring to the couple at the dance marathon, who the one couple collapsed because one partner did.
minor thing.
Happened.
And they literally see the other guy collapse and they fall over because they're so exhausted because they've been dancing for 48 hours.
48 hours.
And the point of them entering this, the prize is a baby Aston Martin. And after Frannie goes and visits the woman who can't walk because she danced for so long. Her fiance hasn't come and visited her because he couldn't get out of bed. But Frannie gets like a massage therapist and a doctor there to see her and to like help rehabilitate her, and finds an ad for a farm whose price was either X amount of money or a baby Aston Martin. Or like a baby car. Like,
Yeah,
basically
they
either
needed
we
a
want
car.
money or we want a form of transportation. And she realized they were trying to get out of the city and get out of, because the place they're living is awful and it's dirty and like filled with rats. And now they're like the club where they were having the competition is trying to not give them the prize. At one
Everybody's
point-
just, fucking excuse me, no.
And Frannie calls the club and is like, "Oh yes, it's me. Oh, you know who I am. That's great." So
I would hate to not patronize this establishment anymore. Tell my friends that you don't keep your. Oh, it's so good.
I love
It's
that
so
she-
great.
Keep your privilege for good.
She's there so often that it is more beneficial for them to give away a car than to lose her patronage.
Yeah, and she comments on that. She's
Friday's
like,
bah. All these other people are gonna go, why? Oh, what's wrong with it?
and I love her comment that she's like, "I have for some reason this type of influence that other people find important. I don't know why, but they do, and I might as well use it."
Damn straight.
But yeah, it's this wonderful little side. I agree, Des. Like, it was a wonderful little side storyline that was so sweet and incredibly pure.
And very simple. So it was
Yeah.
unlike a lot of the other subplots. It was not like super complicated, and it related still. I liked that everything actually related. There was no real, like, even
disconnect.
the side plot was somehow connected. Like,
I really appreciate
the whole
it.
finding Vick, the whole little couple thing was still all went back to something regarding that night where whatever his name, Stevens, is murdered.
He's actually incredibly unimportant.
He is so unimportant. I found it very interesting. What?
He really was. Oh, he died, but...
Which is fascinating, because you're like, okay, you were insignificant in the book. You basically were at the wrong place, wrong time. You're not a great person, but you're insignificant. You're only really affecting somebody who isn't actually a part of any of this.
Yeah.
Poor Bobby Sullivan, who got conned into making out with Stevens, basically, or in more compromising positions, and then Stevens took pictures of this so that he could blackmail him.
Because at the time, it was a hangable offense.
I think, yeah.
I thought it was...
So in the show, they said it was hangable. In the show, he kept talking about being hanged for it. In the book, he kept talking about being jailed for it. So that might have just been a, like, raising the stakes thing for the show.
I don't know.
But I do know that, like, it was at the very least jailable. For sodomy.
Dumb.
Sorry.
Dumb. Which also... But also, like, that's the big thing that he was being jailed, or that he was being blackmailed for.
Yeah. So that was really, like, the thing, and I'm like, I find it very like, what if this guy was more, like, in the show, they basically made him the hinge pin where he's connected to everybody. Whereas in the book, the original source material, he wasn't really connected to anyone there.
No.
It was an oops.
Maybe by 6 degrees of separation, because he was connected to Bobby Sullivan, who was connected to Charlie.
Yeah.
But
I kind of, I'll be perfectly honest, I kind of liked that. Like, it was odd. It was odd that the person
was great.
Done. But I really loved it was a...
Essie Davis is... Not Essie Davis. Carrie Greenwood is fantastic at the red herring books.
Right!
The whole hairpin thing.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh, yes.
And you're just like, because it makes sense. Like, it's a... I feel like in the... it was nice. I kind of wish I had read the book before having seen the series, because I feel like in the series, it seems more obvious it's a dart.
Yes.
And in
absolutely.
The book, I could see why you might be going, huh, all right, maybe it was a stiletto, because it doesn't seem as like...
It was much more vague in the book.
Yeah, in the show, they kind of very much... I feel like the audience knows well before Frannie.
Yeah, because
there's a really
the
great
dart thing happening all the time.
Yeah, you're like...
There's a really great line from Jack in the show of, I don't know... This is me remembering something that I want to say. But there is a really great line from Jack in the show of, I don't know who's more conniving, him for designing it and for modifying his instrument, or for you for figuring it out. And she goes, Jack, me, of course.
I love it. Yes,
such a good line.
I love Frannie so much.
She's so good.
And how bizarrely offended she is in that moment of just, Jack, me, of course.
Like, anyone can figure out how to make it. Come on.
Like, give me credit for figuring out that he's dirty, no good scoundrel. I don't know. I'm sorry, I have to plug my camera or my computer in, which is why
that's fine.
Crazy person.
So this is I found out recently in the history of hat pins.
Yes. Ooh, the history of hat pins. I'm intrigued.
Oh yeah, this stuff's fantastic.
So I think Des knows where I'm going with this. So hat pins generally used to keep in place over, like, as the fashion became for hats to be overly large or to be minuscule, and so they need to be pinned in place. Otherwise, hat pins were just basically stilettos. They were very thin, very sharp pieces of metal with a handle at the end. And it became a part of the fashion to have it. Now, the issue became that as the hats got bigger or smaller and you needed more pin to hold it in place, they got longer. And it became a fashion, or not a fashion, but it became a thing around the 20s and 30s, that a way for a woman, and it was well known to be a way for a woman to protect herself against a man who is making unwanted physical advances, was to defend herself with her hat pin. So much so, at least in America, to the point that there was a limit put on the length of a hat pin. There was a legal limit put on how long your hat pin could be.
That is fantastic and also really sad.
The weird part is that my housemate told me about this while I was reading the book.
What?
That's awesome. That's fantastic. I love that kind of serendipity. But yeah, it's like, I don't know if there are rules made anywhere else, but I know in the US there were limits. I think it was something like 8 inches long was the maximum, because some of these hat pins were like almost 12 inches long. They were, because hairstyles are dumb if you go back into history. But yeah, so I really liked that it was like, well, we don't know any of, like, there's nothing that any of these women could have been carrying. And Frannie's like, have you ever seen a fucking hat pin, dude?
I love how she just like pulls one out and she's like,
yeah, I love in the show that she shows it to him and then just mimes it because she was told she wasn't allowed to speak. She's just like,
and as Christian just pointed out, at the same time you could buy Tommy guns in a Sears catalog.
Yeah.
Merca.
Okay, around 1911 reports
one is for a woman to defend herself, and the other is for a man to feel better about himself.
Around 1911, reports of hat pin injuries began appearing in Australian newspapers with surprising regularity.
That is amazing.
Face scratches, losing eyes, death because of blood poisoning.
Oh yeah, because that would have been a time when lead was still used in metal and paint.
And sorry, going back to story.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
One thing I will say that I also am very enthused about is in this story, despite the fact that a lot happened, like I was actually surprised because I remember stopping to look at how much time I had left, and I think I had 2 hours left on the audiobook. This is a very simple story. How can we possibly have 2 hours left? Like, I was really confused.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still, like, it felt filled, and I was very excited because I feel like this was a very straightforward story, but at the same time, like, I never felt like it went on. It never dragged for me, and it never, like, got so convoluted. I was like, yes. Because, like, I feel like we're going through this and talking about it, going, like, next we talked about the murder, and then Tintagel Stone is first that she has a moment with, and then gets the very casual, also, you might want to go find my son who I lied about being dead, because I need to make sure he either is dead or will, forfeit his will, because he gets the house, and you realize, what you really care about is not if your son's alive, but if he's alive and going to claim what you're currently living in.
Yeah.
You see.
Then she sends
she's
her
the
son
worst.
to fucking kill.
Yeah, so Frannie hops on a plane. She goes back to her moth. We run into both Bungie and Bill, which has made me very happy. And they genuinely talk about, like, okay, Frannie, this is how it's not gonna be easy.
Yeah.
Which I liked because they gave it a very, like, this is how you'd have to do it. You'd have to refuel here and here, and it felt very like you took a lot of time and thought to make this a believable thing.
It felt like it took longer in the books. Like, it never felt like it dragged, but timeline-wise.
Yes.
Finding Vick.
Like, she was gone for, like, a week.
Yeah.
Whatnot.
I personally loved that storyline. Sorry, not trying to talk over you.
No, go.
I really loved the storyline with Vick, partially because Vick's story is that we also get a lot more background with Bert and Sus. We get to find out how they met each other, why they're friends, and we hear a lot about their service.
Yes.
And their story about the service is actually really dark.
Yeah.
And I noticed while I was listening to it that it is, first of all, it's the longest you hear Bert and Cess talk throughout the books. And it is one of the longest passages of just speech in this book. There's no exterior description. There's very little exterior action. It is just them sitting there and telling them how awful Gallipoli was. And
the other place, which name I can't remember.
It's in France, which I'm blanking on. But Bert especially talks for a very long time about how he is the only survivor of his group from the military. How he and Cess met, and then you hear Cess talk for a really long time, and then he's done, and then he gets a really strong drink, and Mr. Butler, who we've alluded to his previous military service, forgets what he's doing while he's listening to them, which doesn't happen.
He's so out of character for Mr.
Yeah.
And all he does is he just offers them more to drink. It's a really and even Mr. Butler isn't there that much, but that entire section is so beautiful. Posier, thank you. And the part of that we get a lot with Bert and Cess, but we also get she's asking them about it because it's mentioned that Vick was shell shocked, and that's why he went into the bush. And they're talking about, well, if he was here, then this is what we experienced. But if he was shell shocked and he came home at this time, he was probably at Posier. And they describe days and days of being fired on and days of watching people die. And having people come back and be deaf for days and be blind for days. And they do an amazing job of giving it the gravity it deserves for somebody who's seen combat.
Yeah. It was beautiful.
It's absolutely. And Vick tries to come home and can't deal with it and goes, I'm better off going into the bush where it's quiet. And that's how he ends up in this incredibly out of the way place where people protect him.
Yeah. And what's super fucked up is during the time he's home, his mother is keeping Charlie from coming home between boarding school so that he can still, because she's basically still being like, oh no, he's dead. He's literally living in the house, and she's lying that he's dead. That is the thing that blew me away. She didn't even lie about it. He didn't go directly to the bush. He tried to come home, and while he was home, she was lying about him being dead.
And it was over holidays, which means probably none of the other family was home. Because Charlie says, oh yeah, I thought there was something weird about that 6 months because she didn't let me come home. We took holidays here and here and here with the family, which means he came home to nobody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
it's a whole up situation.
That woman.
So numbers from the chat. Posier was 6 weeks, 23,000 Australian battle casualties. Gallipoli was 11 months, 28,000 Australian battle casualties.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it was the Anzacs that ended up in the very, very wrong spot in Gallipoli.
Yeah. God.
And that one of the things I really appreciate in this book is that experience was given a lot of weight and was given time. So once she figures out,
so much that when she gets there, he thinks that she's a bomber.
Yeah, he's obviously still dealing with PTSD.
And you're like, fuck, because he's tries to protect her, thinking that the plane is gonna explode, and then she's like, I don't have any bombs, and he's like, hold. And it's just this awkward, what's happening? Kind of adorable, actually.
It is. It's really great. Although I first of all, she doesn't think that she landed well, and everyone's like, oh my God, you landed so wonderfully and so perfectly in this terrible place. And she's like, it's in one piece. I was told that's a good landing.
I'm the best at landings. I can say that because you don't get planes out here very often.
You don't get
I land so good.
Here.
Oh, I love that. Oh, it's a woman or it's a lady, and you're like, what? I also appreciate that he, after he helps her and, you know, is like, oh, you're a woman, da da da, and they talk. He invites her up, and she's like, I'm going to let you know who I am and that I know before I do that. I'm not going to let that be done under false pretenses. And I thought that was fucking classy as shit.
Yeah.
Because Frannie just goes like, I am on, like, a mountain face. I could probably die without this man's help. I'm going to take that risk because I am not comfortable with the idea of me into who I am and why I'm there.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh.
Yeah, it's a really good moment. Although so in the book, I'm reading it, and I started laughing so loudly that my partner on the other side of my house asked me what was going on.
Oh, please tell me you're about to, like, quote the line I was thinking of quoting.
Potentially, I can't remember the exact line. But he goes, okay, do you want to come up to my house? And she's very honest about who she is. And he goes, okay, all right, you can still come to my house. And she goes, okay, I just need to go get something from my plane.
Oh, yeah.
And she goes back for her diaphragm.
Because she literally goes like, oh yeah, I'm going to climb that man like a mountain.
Yeah. So I was reading, I'm like, wait a minute. She's alone in the bush. We've got couple of hours left in the book. She hasn't had sex yet.
No, she did. She had it with Tintagel twice, I think.
She did have it with Tintagel. But I'm looking at this, I'm like...
But that was very early on in the book.
It was very early on. I was like, it's been a while for Frannie. Wait a minute. Hold on, I have to go back to my place. You're not.
Yes.
No.
I've literally got that highlighted on my computer, so I remember to bring it up.
No, that was amazing.
To quote...
And it's just... Which, to be fair, the way that Carrie Greenwood describes him, he's basically Thor. So right. I kind of imagine, like, because in my head I'm picturing the guy who played Vick, who I'm not going to lie, he stole my heart a tiny bit in that very rugged sort of way. This is a much different rugged sort of way, and I was like,
yes.
Yeah, I have a sneaking suspicion. She just, like, looked at him and was like, yep, I'm going to climb that man like a fucking mountain.
It's the, one of the goodies she had brought along was her diaphragm. One never knew.
One never knew. Oh, so good. But they do. She checks with him, and I also love that she's like, this is going back to the fact that Frannie treats all her lovers like human beings, and she's like, look, I've been without women for a while. I'm worried that I'm gonna fuck that up for you. And he's like, you know what? Nah, because I haven't lost the urge. And I'd rather have some now than, like, never. And, you know, then I'll have, like, my memories. Boom!
Yeah. She's super upfront about, like, I'm not staying here.
Yeah, she's like, no,
if this happens, like, I'm going to leave in less than a week, and you have to be cool with that, because I'm still going to leave. Like, she's super honest about it.
Just upfront that this is how it is.
Yeah, it's like, I could never live out here. This place is terrible. For me.
But she does have... Sorry, go ahead.
I get it. I've been out camping in the Australian bush. Like, it's nice for a day or two, but eventually you want to get back on Twitter.
Yes, Frannie Fisher on Twitter, that's a scary thought. Carrie Greenwood was talking about, like, it's a whole different kind of silent.
Yeah.
And I'm very curious
silent.
about that.
It's the way that she described it.
And I'm like, okay, I may have to at some point, like, go on a tour in the bush to be like, I want to.
Oh, if you come out to Sydney, I can take you out and, like, show you in the Blue Mountains, some Aboriginal hand paintings.
Ooh.
In the Blue Mountains.
I also do want a flushing toilet to.
Oh, it's a day trip.
I like the idea of camping, but I do not understand this notion of rejecting plumbing.
That's fair. I refuse to go to camping grounds that don't have bathrooms.
Fine, I will bathe in a river, but I want a toilet. It's just basics. I like a toilet. They're great.
Okay, because of Frannie on Twitter, I had to find out if there is a Frannie profile, and it's called the lady with a gun. And the description is, sometimes you need a lady's touch. I make investigation look good. Don't worry, I can do this. I have a gun. But to pair with it like a fine wine, you have Detective Inspector Jack Robinson at Detective Inspector Jack Robinson, trying to solve crime while dealing with a witty, pretty female PI in the 1920s. It's not easy, let me tell you.
Now kiss! I'm just gonna, like, tweet at them randomly. Now kiss!
Yep. I just had to share that because
that's amazing.
Happy.
So we're in the bush.
Yes, we are in the bush.
We are in the bush. And he's living there. They get up to his cabin. He's living with a dog, a horse, and a wombat.
Okay, Wom is the best character in the entire book. I love Wom so much, and I want to take him home.
No, it's adorable,
Wom
and I love Frannie's like delight with him. She's like, ah! And it's such a great setup of like, she nearly gets knocked over by the wombat going after the potato, which becomes relevant later, which I thought was just very clever and adorable. Like, oh, who was gonna see that coming?
Fucking wombat. Well,
but I've dealt with wombats. I know someone who got run out of their house once by a wombat.
I didn't know that, like...
That is the most Australian sentence you have ever said. I'm sorry.
That's fair. I stand corrected. Who is not native? We also find out Vick has been panning gold and has stopped because he's got a substantial amount and will be fine the rest of his life. He's like, I don't want to bleed it dry. We find out he's the person who got as much as I'm going to need until I die, and I'm good. And so that's why he's like been rejecting checks from his mom. He's like, I don't fucking need it. I don't want a connection. Because his dad.
Well, his mom never sent him mail.
Well, she sent him mail.
He just hasn't responded, right?
Yeah, or he never responded to it, and then he stopped picking up the checks, which he told his father he was going to stop doing. But freaking his dad, I feel bad for his dad because his dad clearly was super unhappy with the mom and was like, I can't, like, clearly loves his son and cannot understand why his son won't come back. And keeps asking. And so that's one of the reasons that Frannie says she's there. She's like, I also have to. And he's like, okay. And he's a little sad about it, but he'd cut off connections. While this is going on, we discover Charlie.
Oh, fucking Charlie.
Has been sent to go find his brother by his mother. We don't know why yet. I was starting to go like, it's interesting because I remember going, while reading it, why? Because I feel like it was pretty clear Frannie was going to go look for Vick. So why is he doing this? Mm-hmm. And then, like, I was like, does he mean Vick harm? If so, why? Like, maybe I don't know. What's going on? Maybe they don't trust Frannie. He convinces this dude to lead him up the friggin' mountain, and then hits the guy on the back of the head with a rock. Maybe Charlie is also a murderer.
Just from Christian,
Charlie gets worse the longer the book goes on.
Yeah, it didn't make sense to me, because I was going, this is someone who literally got sick at the sight of blood, but just bludgeoned a man on the back of the head. Yeah. So then I was going, these two don't match. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on. And then he, like, takes his gun and is, like, threatening Frannie and fucking Vick. And it's fucking hilarious because Frannie's, like, going, we were making rabbit stew, which means I was peeling potatoes. I'm just gonna put this potato on the floor in direct line of where I know Wom is hiding. And it's just very quietly, Wom. And then the freaking wombat knocks him over and is actually on top of him trying to get to the potato, which is stupid cute and also terrifying.
Oh yeah, wombats are terrifying. Don't hit one with your car. You will total it.
Noted.
Like
That sounds very much like deers here. We don't.
Yeah, but wombats are like
hit
this big.
No, that's fair.
I mean,
you don't hit. Here's the thing: you don't hit deer in this country. Deer hit you.
And then you hope your insurance pays for it.
Like you'll be and you have to be clear about it because your insurance will pay for it much differently. If you're like, I hit a deer and like a deer hit me, because you'll be driving, and they'll just go bang out of fucking nowhere because dumb. And you're like, shit.
Oh, they're like kangaroos.
Apparently, deer are the kangaroos of North America.
I love this comment that just popped up in the chat.
Wombats are dense. Oh, dense
yeah, no, I've had friends' cars totaled by deer as well, especially if it's like a full-grown buck.
And you're like, well,
yeah,
and they will get up, look at you, look indignant, and walk away. And you're like,
they're not happy about this.
This was on you, buddy. You did this. Like, come back here.
Don't you know? Look left, look right before crossing the road. It's not that hard.
Right? Like, they just look at you and get very pissy and walk off. And like,
one of my like third.
You hit me.
One of my like third favorite explanations of where I grew up was driving home really late at night with my mom one night, and along the side of we're driving down the road and we see a rabbit go across the road in front of us, and we're like, shit. Okay, it's fine. We continue going. A coyote crosses in front of us, and we're like, what the hell? And then further down, 3 deer go across the road in front of us, and we're like, it's just fucking Animal Crossing night.
I was just gonna ask that. I'm like, do you live in Animal Crossing?
But yes, she utilizes WOM.
She utilizes WOM, so they're able to overpower Charlie. They tie him up. They'll be like, we're taking him down tomorrow. Like, fine.
Quote. This
and then
fucking quote from
they're
that
like,
night.
The quote is great.
Charles lay awake, furious, humiliated, and strained at the ropes that bound his wrists. He heard the faint sounds of flesh sliding against flesh from the big bed and seethed with outrage.
Because Frannie and Vick are like, damn it, this is not how we pictured this night going. And Frannie's like, still go that way? She's like, I think we can be quiet, it's fine. As long as we don't wake up, what's his name, Dave? Is it Dave or is it Daniel? I can't remember.
I don't know, I
poor
don't
guy
have
got
highlighted.
The guy
legend.
who
It
got clobbered.
started with a D. The poor guy got Frannie. So he like wiggles himself free while they're fucking. And then he's
Dave,
like, I'm gonna go get. Oh, it's Dave. Okay. He's like, I'm gonna go get the gun my brother threw off the cliff. Which, I get that he thinks he just threw it down in an area, but I'm like, bro, maybe you should stop and think. If I'm gonna throw a firearm away, I'm gonna throw it somewhere you can't get to it easily. Like, and if so, it's probably now in the water and useless.
True.
So he tries to go after it, and they're like, oh shit, where's he going? And then before they can get to him, the idiot falls off himself and dies.
He doesn't fall off the cliff. He trips and hits his head.
Slips on a rock because he realizes, oh, that is the fuck. Slips and hits his head and dies. And you're like, this is the most pathetic death. But you are such a pathetic person.
He's just the worst. He can't even die properly.
He can't even die well. Oh, God. It's so upsetting. And then, poor Vick, who actually did kind of love his brother still, is like, well, I see my brother for the first time in fucking... I signed something. He signed a thing saying I don't want...
Yeah.
Friday. So there was really no point. It was completely in vain.
Mm.
And now he has to carry his brother down the mountain to make sure he gets sent back.
And
to his mother.
his response to where because she asked him, she's like, "Are you sure you're okay taking him?" And he says something along the lines of, "We haven't talked in a really long time, and this is a really good opportunity for me to say everything I need to."
Yeah.
Just
like, it's
hurts.
really sweet, but it's also like literally the only way you could have this conversation is with your brother dead.
Yeah, because he's a lot like your mom.
Wait.
Fuck that woman. Yeah. Would you like to talk about when they get back to Melbourne and she's like, well, time to talk about your son now.
And so, because Frannie's talking to her, and she's like, well, Charles hasn't come back. And she's like, yes, it was interesting that Charles was there and seemed to have a particular intent.
Thanks for the heads up, bitch.
But no, Charlie's not coming back. Well, he's dead, isn't he? Yes. So Vick's alive? Yes. And then there is this description of her crying, and then basically Frannie calls her bullshit.
And goes, like, you wanted him to kill him.
Yeah. She's like, no, you wanted him to kill him. By the way, here's the signed piece of paper saying he doesn't want your will. And you have everything that you want now. And she just stops. She stops pretending to cry. And she's like, yep, this is what I was looking for.
And she literally looks at her like, but you'd never be able to prove it or something. It's like the most, like, icky moment. And I will say, just a beautiful, it was nice. The fact that, like, Frannie is very clever. But it still shows that there are sometimes people who still get the better of her.
Mm.
Yeah.
And even though she can't be put away, it's like, there's nothing that can be really done. And I like that was this moment of, like, defeat of, like, you literally ruined this boy's life by dragging him around and forced him to try to kill his brother, knowing that it wasn't going to work. Also that you can secure your position. Like, I am really hoping we hear about Mrs. Freeman again, because I would love for this woman to get some sort of just desserts. I don't know if it's going to happen.
It's the dream, though.
Maybe there's a way that I would at least like Frannie to socially ruin this woman.
I like to think she does.
I don't know if that's going to be a thing or if we're going to hear about it. That hopes less. But that was chilling. Just of that moment of like, you're not the simpering woman you pretend to be. You're like Umbridge level of evil.
I was going to say, I think she is one of the most disturbing people in terms of being very coldly calculating that we've met.
Yes.
Like, we've seen a lot of people who are manipulative, but usually had an emotional impetus behind it. Where they had an emotion, like, I was wronged, I'm getting revenge for something, I'm protecting someone. There was none of it.
No.
There was none of it with her. It was really just this is what I need to do to secure my place in society. And we never really talked about the fact that her husband died.
Yeah. And now I'm kind of going, how?
Heart failure.
Yeah, I know, but
she probably drove into it.
There's a very convenient answer in the 20s when we didn't have very many medical...
It's that thing of, like, when you think about all the ways that you can, like, aggravate
heart failure,
heart conditions.
I mean, her personality.
It just kind of makes me go. It genuinely makes me go. Did he die normally?
Yeah.
Or were you worried he might change his will? Because he already wrote you out of it. So.
But yeah, I mean, of all of the, like, villain type characters that we've had, I think she's actually one of she falls into that category of me for you're disturbing because I could meet you and not know it.
Exactly.
Type of person.
No, that is definitely, yes.
Which are my favorite types of villains, because being able to craft somebody who doesn't just existentially make you go, oh my god, they're a representation of all, but just, I could meet you and I wouldn't know.
And it's just,
It
leaves
is.
a
Ugh.
gross
And
taste in your mouth. I was not surprised at all that, like, booted as she got out of there. It's just like, bleh. I was like, oh, I feel sick.
And that was another, I appreciate that as a very human response from Frannie.
Yeah.
Of like, I've gone and find a man who went to the bush to get away from you and to get away from everything that has happened to him. I've watched all of the shit that you've done to your sons and all the other things that have unfolded around this. And that's your response. And it literally is physically sickening. And she hasn't slept much through all of this. Like, she says at some point, someone asks her when she's going to sleep. And she's like, that's a very nice idea. And then just kind of moves on. Like, she's actually pretty physically wrecked by the end of the book as well.
Yeah.
But I did like that was a relatively human response from Frannie.
Yes. It's just, ugh. And then we go back to the jazz makers because she has to be good on promise to Jack Robinson, but she doesn't entirely. Because before she goes to Jack Robinson, she goes to the jazz makers and goes, "Hey guys, I know what happened." Which,
hey, I solved it.
A bit ballsy. Noreen tries to take blame for Ben's thing, and
which
she
is the
was
same
gonna let her do it.
Yeah.
Unlike in the TV show, which I like, where she tries to take blame for it, because she's like, no, I'm not letting him go to jail. I'm not going to let him hang for it. And then when he's shown her signed confession, he's like, no, I'm not letting her go. No.
Yeah.
Like, it was just this beautiful, like, it's one thing that I liked better in the series, definitely, is I found Ben Rogers to be, motive-wise, a bit more understandable. And
yeah, because
I did feel kind of bad, to be honest, that you're realizing, because at the end of the show, she's singing this beautiful song outside his jail cell with, like, her voice, and it's just breaking, and it's so beautifully shot, and he's just kind of leaning against it, like, on the other side listening, and you're having this moment of, like, you know what? This is one of the times where I feel really conflicted. Like, I kind of wish you hadn't been caught. Because really, is the world such a terrible place without Leonard Stevens?
So, like, I kind of feel like, I kind of wish that the book and the episode endings were kind of flipped the other way around. Because, like, Ben gets away in the book. And he leaves Noreen behind. But in the book, he's such, like, he comes across as such a worse person. Because in the series, he's protecting the woman he loves.
Yeah.
Whereas
he's doing what he thinks is right.
Whereas in the book, he's just kind of a jealous dick.
He's a jealous dick who seems to be like, you touched my property, and I have to believe that he thinks of it as property, because otherwise he would have brought her with him. She's upset and distraught when Frannie comes back because he left without her.
Yeah. I want book Ben to go to be hung, and I want episode Ben to run away with Noreen.
Done and done.
So I'm just gonna make that my new headcanon. You're welcome.
Fair enough. So two side stories we haven't really talked about, though. One is that Noreen asks Frannie to find her husband, her first husband, who she is still married to legally in the States.
Which is not a very secretive thing.
No, in the book it's not.
In the book. In the series, she's being blackmailed.
Yeah.
And Frannie ends up finding very quickly, she's like, Noreen's a fucking bombshell. Would abandon. I think this guy's been dead for a while. And true to point, she sends Dot to go look through paperwork, and Dot really enjoys research, which I found adorable. And I'm like, oh, the Scoobies are all finding their like individual strengths, and it was exciting. And she was just like, I really enjoyed this. And she ends up finding out the guy's been dead for like 7 years, and that like she kind of got forced into the marriage at 16. Yeah, and everyone's just kind of like, cool, so that's what happened to him, and then we all move on. Yeah. The other side story was the photos of Bobby Sullivan's. Yeah.
Bobby Sullivan's photos because in the TV show, Jack has them as evidence because he goes into the apartment to search it, and Frannie has shimmied up a drain pipe
to follow Bobby Sullivan, who had also
follow Bobby Sullivan to get the photos.
To quote, I believe that's Miss Fisher. Collins, I believe that's Miss Fisher.
Oh, Collins.
Yeah.
Because in the show, Charlie is not only not a dick, but he is in a relationship with Bobby as to this weird "I will let you occasionally kiss me" thing. And Leonard Stevens was blackmailing both of them, and it was actually kind of heart-wrenching and whatnot. But in the book, just Bobby Sullivan is being blackmailed, and my brain died. I think it's, or is he also possibly blackmailing Charlie?
I think he's blackmailing both of them.
But he's blackmailing Charlie for just like, we have a picture of you two kissing.
Yeah.
Or something. Like, it's not something that they'd be hung for, so she's able to get the picture incriminating and would like end up putting him in jail.
But like in the book, she doesn't have the photos. She's supposed to give Jack the photos.
Yeah.
And they get handed to her, and she like just hands them off to Charlie and is like, "What do you know? I couldn't get the photos. I'm sorry." And in the TV show, Jack has the photos.
No. Jack got them in.
No, right. She asks for them.
That's right. Jack actually gives them to her.
He gives them to her because they're not actually part of the case. I should report it to Vice, but I won't.
Right.
And so she gives us back to Bobby Sullivan, who's like, "Oh, my career is my life isn't." And in
the show, it's the plates. It's the negative plates.
And he's like, he has them for evidence, and he's like, "I can't destroy them because they're, da-da-da." But at the end of the show, he gives them to her. She's like, "You can't destroy them." He's like, "I can't. You can."
Yeah.
And it's just like, Jack.
And then him looking at her dumb, goofy photos when they were trying to book her.
I love how she's kind of like doing all the posing, and there's just this moment where Jack kind of like, he does this, is like, does like the eyebrow raising. Just,
Yeah. Oh, I love him looking at her phone at the end of that episode.
So cute.
Anyway, sorry.
Oh, and the policeman's ball happened.
Yes.
I love that, like, Jack and Frannie are colluding against Dot and Collins.
Yes. I love how basically Jack and Frannie are now kissed.
Why don't you walk her out, Hugh? Why don't you give him the research, Dot?
Which led to... Can I show it now? Can I show it now?
Yes.
My favorite part of the entire episode, I think. If this little Dot being super adorable and awkward with the magnifying glass, and I just die.
Oh, it's so adorable.
Dot's so cute, it makes me want to kill myself.
She's just like, just in case, you need this. And he's like, "Well, we have these stations." And she's like, "Of course you do."
And she has this moment where she's kind of like, "Oh God, what am I doing?"
Why is this in my hand? I'm still holding it out. No.
It's so good.
So cute.
And then he gives her a kiss on the cheek, and she kind of like, "Oh my God," and she looks like she's just gonna like, thump.
Well, they also, because I don't think they address the religious thing in the book.
No, because in the book, they're both Catholic.
Oh, that's right. Also, there isn't a whole lot of Hugh in this book.
There isn't. There wasn't a lot of Hugh. There wasn't a ton of Dot either.
That happens. All of that happens while Frannie's in the bush.
Yeah, it is all off screen, but you get to hear about, like, she was stunning, and you're like, oh. I kind of liked that I was sad we didn't get to read about it, but I liked that they kind of had that private moment of where, like, Frannie wasn't involved. She was like, "You're gonna go to the ball, you're gonna..." I did, and it was great. Nah. You're just like, Dot.
So cute.
I like how there's the where Dot and Frannie are discussing the murder, and Dot's just kind of like, the man stabbed then? Asked Dot, privately wondering how far she had come from the innocence of her mother's house. If a year ago someone had told Dot that she would be sitting in the ladies' parlour in her dressing gown, eating Hilliers chocolates and discussing murder without turning her head, Dot would have laughed and told the speaker to get off the grog.
Get off the grog. Oh, I love it.
Just
so good.
Dot's like,
So
well,
good.
things have changed a little.
So this is my life now.
I just like, because I feel like everyone's had that point where you're just like, you look around for a minute, like, how did I?
This is a much different
This
life.
is good, but like, where did it come from?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And then we have our first Jack and Frannie fight because because Ben Rogers gets a because what's delivered is the confession and the murder weapon. And Jack's like, you said you were gonna come and tell, and now he's gotten away, and da-da-da-da-da. And he blows up at her, and they, like, hang up, and then he immediately calls back and is like, so it occurs to me that I was just an asshole. Because it literally is that moment of, like, you're right, you provided us with all of this stuff that you had no obligation to do. So thank you. And it's they just have a sort of beautiful, like, little makeup there, but just I love that he's like, ah, and then like, so it occurs to me I was just an asshole. Because it's so quickly after, she's not even up the stairs again before the phone rings. So you know that, like, he hung up and then, like, steamed for a minute and then went, oh shit.
I mean, I feel like that phone call is important on both, like, to Jack, it's important on both, like, a personal and a professional level.
Yes.
Because, like, there's that whole thing that, like, he likes Frannie, he doesn't want her angry, but also, like, she solves cases. So, like, he kind of needs that professional relationship there.
There's a whole lot of professional respect in the books, at least.
Yes, I like that. I feel like
he may not be happy about it, but he respects it.
Yeah, it takes him a lot longer in the show to warm up to her on a professional level, which I find interesting. Like, on a personal level, they seem to, like, kind of hit it off pretty quickly. But on a professional level, he's like, get your nose out of my freaking cases.
You're pretty.
Stop dropping my name.
Stop that. I'm not your reference.
Which may just be that, like, they want to create a bit more, like, tension between them in the series, because he's a lot bigger in the series than he is in the books, at least at this point.
I mean, in the book,
quit banding about his name.
In the book, they describe him as a forgettable person. Like, that's most consistently how they describe him, of medium height with medium hair and medium eyes, and is an entirely forgettable officer.
Because he's very, like, they describe him as being, like, he's not unattractive, but he's fairly nondescript. Like, he can blend in very well.
It's usually, at least in this book, it's the first descriptive word is, he was unmemorable.
Yeah, which I find a beautiful concept, because you have this guy who's been such a good detective because he blends in, and then you have Frannie, who could not blend in if she tried.
Yeah.
Like, boom, I'm here!
I am pretending to be a homeless person. Why are you wearing a 3,000-pound dress?
Shush!
That actually comes up in the TV show very early on. She's talking to the woman who sells flowers. And she makes this comment. She's like, believe it or not, like, I get where you are. And the woman just looks at her and she's like, what would you know about my life? Look at how much money you carry with you. Look at how you dress. And look at me. Like, you don't understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
She doesn't do a really good job of, like, blending it anywhere if she ever wanted to.
Kind of
Couldn't
when
even-
she went to the communist club.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
That's
You're
about it.
not going to blend in here. Let us give you tips.
Yeah. But all in all, like, definitely, like, it's definitely on my top. Like, I really enjoyed this book a lot.
Mhm.
What were your guys' favorite moments?
Oh, mine was the happy couple. I loved them so much. They just
Yeah. Mine was honestly when Frannie was in the bush and she has a moment where she is by herself and she's just looking at it and she's taking it in and she's like, you know, I understand why you would come out here.
Yeah.
And she has this really, because you don't see her tone down or quiet very much. And it's a very quiet moment of her just going, no, I get it. That was one of my favorite moments in the book.
I think one of mine was Jo and Anne, the author and her nurse/doctor wife, of just their interactions, their banter, and I still just love the very much like, because I could see it in my head of just like, you're almost there. There you go.
It's one house. It's very small. There's only one bedroom. Come on. Come on.
And there you go. Oh, and to Christian's point, I also liked the Bert and Sus. We got to see a lot more of their backgrounds.
Yeah, I've actually got a quote from, like, it comments that, like, Sess is really unaccustomed to long speech, and he takes, like, a gulp of wine afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
What are our hopes down the line for the next book?
Peach bath.
Yeah, peach bath. I want the peach bath so bad.
Yeah,
I also really want Mrs. Freeman to get her just desserts in some way or the other.
Yes.
Like, I want her socially, because I feel like that would hurt her more than anything. It's just ruin her socially.
Mm-hmm.
Make her a fucking pariah. Make sure everyone in society knows exactly who she is.
I really hope that Vick gets put in that lineup of lovers that we get to hear from again.
Yeah. Like, I like the idea of maybe her making an occasional out to the bush to have a romp in the bush.
I found out that one of the places that he stayed, he stays in the book. He stays at the Bairnsdale Hotel. Mm-hmm. It is now a coffee shop. It's a cafe.
Oh, that's awesome.
I weirdly know people in Bairnsdale.
Shouldn't be surprised.
Yep.
What are our stats? Do we know?
Oh, right, stats. So, for this one, we have a very disappointing nipple count of 0.
0 nipples!
Again! I feel the need.
Des is very distraught about
I almost feel the
need
to tweet it. Harry Green would
Do
be
it.
like, does that
Tweet that nipple.
Please.
Just
tweet the disappointing nipple
I've
count.
got a graph of nipple count in the books, and we've noticed that it's hit 0. Does this remedy itself, or should I stop reading?
No, go please.
Breast count is it at 6?
Okay.
So I think that's...
So we just have a less detailed description.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed actually, it's interesting, because I noticed in this one, despite the fact that she has sex quite a few times, they don't, she kind of does a lot of fade to blacks.
Yeah, I noticed that too. There wasn't a whole lot of description of the act itself.
And don't get me wrong, I'm okay with that, but I was like, are we Carrie Greenwood, did you just decide, writing sex is boring? Which is fair.
I mean, I did like the sound of flesh sliding
Yeah,
on flesh.
that was hilarious. I also am just amused that yet another time for gross out her sex. Be like, sex time.
We have a partner count of 2. And I don't have stats on Now Kiss and Squee moments because I'm never entirely sure how many of those to count. and how to count like
That's
the differences
fair.
between the books and like the series. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's fair. We can probably. I don't know. I don't know where all this data's going. But we did. I do feel like we got our first like real moment of chemistry with Frannie and Jack. This book, which made me very excited. So I was like, because in the show you got it from like
day one,
episode 1.
Yeah.
You're like, now kiss. Even though it's like way too early for that, and it just gets more agonizing as you go. But in the book, I was like, yes.
And really from the series at this point, I just want more awkward flirting Dot.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, you will get so more awkward flirting with Dot and Hugh.
I love that you're experiencing the
adorable.
episodes anew. Like you're experiencing them for the first time, and it makes me so happy.
Part of me just wants to like hammer through the rest of the series, but I'm also like, patience.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, well we're getting there because next up we have Blood and Circuses. So, which I believe you might have seen the episode. The episode happens much later.
I think I saw like the last 15 minutes of that episode.
I think Blood and Circuses happens later in the series because I'm trying to think of. Because it's the 6th book, but it is. Hang on, sorry. Oh wow, yeah, it's the 11th episode. So we've got. We're kind of skipping ahead.
Oh,
what I am really
it's
excited,
this one. Yeah.
What I'm really excited about is it's not this next one, but the one after that, Ruddy Gore, which is the 7th book. You want your awkward flirting with Dot and Hugh? That episode definitely flirting. Because that's the one where they're doing the Gilbert and Sullivan. It's the Gilbert and Sullivan show. Yes. Where Hugh finds a book. That's all I'm saying! Alright, I'm very excited about it.
Cool.
But
I'm just going to spend the episode like making gifs of Dot and Dot being awkward.
Okay.
Do it. And then please give me all of them.
Share. Hugh and Dot are just both Bambi on ice with Frannie and Jack as Thumper. Thank you, Christian.
So that, I think, wraps about this episode of Bitch, I'm Here for the Story. Zoe, where can people find you?
At ZenGirl on Twitter, Patreon, I'm just Zoe. And also, my visual art is now up for Pay What You Can. For everything that I'm putting up on a website, it's zmspaywhatyoucan.weebly.com. I'm just putting up all my visual art for Pay What You Can.
Do it.
Does me? And simply subtext.wordpress.com.
Yeah. Dezzles, where can people find you?
You can find me on YouTube and Twitter as Dezzles. On YouTube, I mostly talk about books and play Pokemon. I've recently started doing book reviews in song, which is weird.
It's so good. No, it's not weird.
I've almost finished. I've almost got the next one done, which is going to be what's that book you recommended me by Jenny Lawson?
Let's pretend this never happened.
That's the one. I've almost got that one.
I haven't read that one yet. It's so good.
It's fantastic. That was a fantastic recommendation.
Oh, thank you.
If you have any book recommendations, ask Kiri. She's a clever.
Because, bitch, I'm here for the story. Oh, right. And by the way, I'm Kiri Callaghan.
Oh, wait, Kiri, start that again. You dropped out a little.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was I saying? Oh, yes.
Who are you?
I am Kiri Callaghan. You are watching this on my YouTube channel. I am also on Facebook. I have a website. And also, I'm occasionally on Twitch, where you can find me under Kiri. Except for Twitch, which is Curiosity, K-I-R. I can spell.
Links
And,
in the description.
Great. Dead. Yes, all the links in the description. Please join us next month. We will be reading Blood and Circuses. If you're following along, also with the show, it is the 6th book. It is, however, the 11th episode. So bear that in mind. Thank you. Tune in next time. We love you so much, and we will see you later because, bitch, we're here for the story.
Bye.
Bye.